General Sir, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit.
Very important topic today. You know, all topics have been important, but today again is an important one. And let me thank you for, despite your ill health, agreeing to speak. Lieutenant General Consul Himalaya Singh, first Lieutenant General of Northeastern India, part of the two-member consultative committee of the peace negotiations in the Northeast. Somebody who's handled terrorism from very close quarters over 4 decades. General K H Singh has been a patron to the forum over the last 15 months. And in this Amrit Mahotsav series, today we talk about, specifically with respect to Manipur and Nagaland, the issues with respect to peace, the current political situation there, the extremism, militancy, insurgency, terrorism, various destabilizing issues which lead to deceleration of the stability, left side growth of a region which is so rich in natural resources, and where the focus of the Prime Minister has been over the last 8 years, ever since he's taken over the mantle of leadership of the nation, wherein he mentioned Ashtabhuja. Ashtabhuja means 8, arms of the, country, the goddess called India, Bharat Mata. 8 sisters, 7 sisters known generally, but including Sikkim since 1975. There are northeastern states of Sikkim, Tripura, Arunachal, Mizoram, Manipur, Nagaland, Assam, and Meghalaya. Insurgency, according to General K H Singh, has been reduced to negligible extent. It's reduced to negligible proportions by now, and in the 4 states, especially of Mizoram, Arunachal, Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya, Assam to a lot of extent. Where it still simmers is Manipur, Nagaland, and Assam to some extent, where a new political dispensation under Himanta Sharma now, after the BJP took over in the last 7 years. But here we talk specifically about Manipur, Nagaland. General K H Singh is the first Lieutenant General, the man of real substance, who knows the man of the soil, the son of the soil. It's not easy to, be a nationalist in those regions which have been completely destabilized over so many years. I'll leave it to General K H Singh. Exactly what do we mean when we talk about peace or peace accord? There has recently been a lot of talk around peace accord in these places. He is stationed out of Imphal, along with the former CM of Manipur. General K H Singh is part of the two-member consultative committee for the peace talks. General K H Singh, take us through the situation actually on the ground in Manipur and Nagaland, and then we can take the discussion forward as to what went wrong, why situation has simmered to this extent, what is the current situation, what needs to be done, not only on paper, not only from lip service point of view, not only from a kind of eyewash point of view, but also from a real, real delivery when it comes to the normal life, let's aside, growth and prosperity of the people in that region. Over to you, Lieutenant General Consul Himalaya Singh ji. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Amit, for giving me this opportunity. It's a very, very large subject that we are trying to cover. You know the background of insurgencies and terrorism. So I will go back in history to the origins, and from 1947, right from the time that we got independence till accords, approximately 18 accords, right, starting from 1947 with various groups. As you know, the northeastern region comprises of these 8 states, they are groups, each one of them trying to secure a, a viable and also advantageous position over others within the northeastern region. The reasons are many for the insurgencies, such as underdevelopment, a psychological, separation from rest of India in the past, not anymore now, and governance issues and various, because of the geostrategic locations of China and erstwhile East Pakistan, and also very unstable neighborhood in Myanmar and even in Bangladesh to some extent in the past. With that as the backdrop, since your question is specifically directed to what is happening now, as you rightly covered.
General Saab, firstly, why have or why did we reach this situation?
I'd say, like, we spoke about the historical regions. History has played a significant role in the entire instability in the northeastern region. So I will not go back into history. You know the Assam agitation, then Assam Accord, because of after which the ULFA, United Liberation Front of Assam, came into being. You know about the Naga insurgency because of their identity and also the impression that they were never part of India. That kind of impression they gathered at the time of independence. Similarly, in Manipur, the way people of Manipur considered themselves as not part of India in the literal sense.
General Saab,
You had
we
the
need to know this.
Tripura, you had the...
We would like you to speak at least 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes on the reasons for the last at least 75 years, when at least in the last 70 years, if this was the situation, why did we reach it post independence, and what historically, you please throw some light.
Okay. To begin with, northeastern India actually came into the psyche of, a political India only after 1826. That is the Treaty of Yandabu. This was signed after the defeat of the Burmese kingdom by the Britishers. This was signed between the Burmese and Britishers, thereby getting almost the entire region of Northeast India into some kind of a British authority. Before that, there have been many interactions with, we talk about the time of there has been interactions, but not that was closed in, that was what was the understanding, because people of this area live in very, very difficult terrain, difficult geographical conditions. So generally, people were not much aware about the northeastern region. Why the situation came to insurgency situation in the northeast is in my mind then the political issues of, some like kingdoms like Manipur saying that we were never part of India. Then Nagaland, Naga Hills district, they felt that Nagas felt that they were never part of India. So this kind of a construct during the British period, the factor to my mind is the underdevelopment and between the people of the northeastern India and rest of the country, which is to a very, very large extent, which has been now, the communication gap and gap in understanding has been largely closed now. In fact, there are no longer, I think that it is hardly anything now. So primary reason to my mind, as I said earlier, starting with the history, second was geopolitical stable country. China was helping out the Naga and the Manipuri insurgents in the past. Even now, they continue to support in some way. Then East Pakistan, the Pakistan ISI, when before 1971, actively supported the northeastern insurgents like the Mizo insurgents or Manipuri insurgents or even the Naga insurgents. Today, things are far better. However, you have an unstable neighborhood in Myanmar. Right now, they are under military rule also. And in Myanmar itself, there are more than 20 insurgent groups who are fighting the government, government forces. So you can see the entire neighborhood is unstable. And added to that is the identity wars. As I said, every group, more than 250 ethnic groups in northeastern India, every group trying to outdo the other in terms of garnering more political power, garnering more economic power. So all this is going on, which is transformed in the present day. It has been transformed into some kind of identity war, I'll say, right now.
Rajasthan has been a border state.
Yeah.
General Sahab, Rajasthan has been a border state. It has been a border state with India's best friend. I hope you understand. Now, with such a wonderful neighbor, which the entire world would be envious of. Rajasthan being such an important, resourceful, and a historically one of the most important states of the country, with so many kingdoms, and having a history of kingdoms. It is still the kingdom of kingdoms, if not the world, at least in India. The same backdrop Rajasthan also exhibited over so many centuries. And there are so many groups, there are so many clans. Marwadis, Marwadis is just some people from Rajasthan, but it's again has got so many ethnic divisions in Rajasthan, including so many people from Islamic community also settled there, being a border state, just like Gujarat. Why do you think the same instability or destability or such issues did not crop up in Rajasthan or Gujarat, but they had in Northeast?
First of all, Rajasthan and Gujarat, the people, in fact, they represent a major chunk of Indian history as we understand it. They have been identified with the idea of India in a big way. In fact, the Rajputs of Rajasthan, the kings, who have been fighting for India's, against the Mughals for hundreds of years. So that is the history of Rajasthan and Gujarat, fighting against the invaders.
So is it about the Mongolian base? Is it about the Mongolian base that has made all these things?
I would say to some extent, yes. The Mongoloid, the ethnic mix in Northeast India is totally different from what you said, of Rajasthan. And Mongoloid, all these, the drawbacks, I won't say drawback, the weaknesses have been exploited by the foreign countries like China and Pakistan in the past to instill a sense of to support these insurgency ideas in the people of Northeast India. So of course, China, after After Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, he decided to actually distance themselves, China, from the internal disturbances in Northeast India of India. However, I have reason to believe that today, most of these insurgent groups who are not in the talks are in Chinese Yunnan province. Their headquarters are there. So therefore, I have reason to believe that China is, as of now, supporting the Northeastern insurgents indirectly, if not direct, with arms and other weapons.
Ever since when did this Mongoloid, group, Mongoloid race become part of, I'm trying to not dig deep, but at least we had to touch upon the important issues. Otherwise, this show today will also be another, just like any other show wherein we talk about, oh, somebody is right, somebody is wrong, we should do this, we should do that. The center should send interlocutor, the team has done this, economic packages, political willpower, elections to be held. All this we know. What we need to really find out today is where the problem started. So these Mongoloids, they came to this Indian subcontinent and became part of Bharat. Ever since when?
Are you talking about the Northeastern region as such?
I think that is where the Northeastern region is where they are primarily found. We don't find Mongoloids having come like the Islamics. The Islamists came all the way via the NWFP, and the British came all the way through Surat and then through the Bay of Bengal, and that through that quintessential nationalist region called Bengal. So to keep that aside, can we just understand how these Mongolians came to India and how this northeastern region became a part of so-called Bharat over centuries?
As far as Mongoloids are concerned, you have right from Leh Ladakh all along the Himalayas till the northeastern part of the country. I mean, that is, as far as that is concerned, the first part of the answer. However, in Northeast India, the Mongoloids, when you say Mongoloids, most of the languages in Northeast India are Tibeto-Burman language origin, Tibeto-Burman or Kuki-Chin group. So you talk about the Bodos and even Assamese, the pure Ahoms. Ahoms are actually Shans from Myanmar who came in 12th century AD. These Ahom Assamese, they came to the present day Assam during the 12th century AD from Myanmar. Pushing aside the already existing, the kingdoms of Bodo origins, who themselves are Mongoloid in their language and their, as I said, Tibeto-Burmese language, who are Mongoloids themselves. They were there for centuries, for at least 2,000 years, recorded. Even Manipur, Kingdom of Manipur itself is 2,000-year-old recorded, So when you say, when the Mongoloids came, actually, I'll say the entire Northeast, I think for thousands of years, they have been, the Mongoloids have been here in this area.
And
however,
were they part of the conquest of so-called India by these Islamics, when they entered India in the 13th, 14th century?
That is very good question. During the period around the 15th century, 16th century, when the Mughals wanted to extend their Bengal province, from Calcutta, Bengal province towards Assam, the Mughals tried to occupy the present day Assam 17 times. There were 17 battles fought between the Mughals and the Ahoms. Ahoms are, as I said, they're from Myanmar and they ruled the present day of Assam, or particularly the Brahmaputra Valley. And in the Battle of Saraighat, that is in Guwahati, 1561 or 1568, I don't recollect the date right now, the Mughals were comprehensively defeated by the Ahom army. After that, the Mughals never tried to even venture into the Northeast? Since you are asking that question, after the Mughals were defeated comprehensively by the home army in 1568, or I don't recollect the date. After that, the Mughals never expanded into the northeastern region. The next time is that when Britishers came in around 18th century, they started probing into the northeastern region with a view to explore, the Burmese kingdom as well as the Chinese kingdom, and they thought that Tibet might be influenced by Russians, and also the great game between the Russia and British. In that part of that, they started exploring the northeastern region. That is why I was mentioning about 1826, when the Treaty of Yandabu effectively brought most of the northeastern region under the British suzerainty, including Assam and Manipur. So that is how Mughals never reached northeastern India, but it was the British who actually got the British northeastern India into the British India. It is not to say that ancient interaction between India and northeastern part was never there. No, there have been.
So what you are saying, General Saab, this is more interactive. So what you are saying, General Saab, like Alexander, got stuck in Magad. He won the world over, but he got stuck in Magad. Similarly, the Muslims or the Tughlaqi or the Barbarian or the Islamist, what is this person's name? Shahamir is there's the first real capturer of Indian territory from the Persian region, defeating Prithviraj. And here we get the connections. Rajasthani, the first wall of resistance was Prithviraj. And then I could be wrong. I am no one to talk on history, but somewhere near, I'm trying to touch upon issues. So now then we had the Mughals trying to reach up to northeastern corners, being thwarted 17 times by the Assamese, so-called Ahoms, the Myanmar descendants from Myanmar. So you're telling me by that time, till that time, this part of the region basically was not part of the mainstream or not part of India as such, Bharat Varsh as such, and it was different from the Bengal province. It was separated from the Bengal province. Are you telling me that?
I would make a slight amendment to what you are saying. The entire region was in the psyche of our old Indian civilization. That I have no doubt about it. There is no doubt about, like Manipur kingdom had already been, adopted Hinduism in 16th century. Even Assam Vaishnavite culture had already, in fact, the Ahoms, they took to Vaishnavite culture within 200 years of their arrival in Assam. So I am not saying that entire northeastern region was outside the ambit of idea of India. No, it was within the Indian civilization. But when it came to ruler, it was not under the Mughals. That is the first thing, I would like to say. And after that, when Mughals were comprehensively defeated, the next time when from a government's point of view, the British East India Company in 1826 got most of the northeastern region into some kind of a British administration. That's what, please distinguish between the administration and the historical connect between Indian civilization and Northeast India. These are two different issues that I would like to flag. Yeah.
So, post 1826, the administration started including basically this northeastern region as part of Bharat or India. That is what are you telling me? Post
British
1826.
British India.
Until that time, it was all like, kingdoms and people who had come inside from various other parts. They were just staying here and nobody actually had the control. Like the Mughals, when they ruled India from 15th, 16th century to the 19th century, till they got defeated by the British East Indian Army or East India Company. Till that time, you're telling me this 400 years or so, these people were just independently existing there without having been captured or without having been included in the Mughal Empire.
Yes, I'm exactly saying that there were many kingdoms such as Ahom kingdom, the kingdom of Manipur, kingdom of Tripura, but the other tribes also existed. Sometimes, under principalities, the tribal chiefs, some of them were semi-independent, most of them were under some king or the other. So this was a loose kind of loose kind of administration which was going on for a very, very long time, right from these days, for hundreds of years. In fact, for nearly 1,000 years. But yes, Burmese, why this 1826 happened was Burmese had come and defeated the king of Manipur and Assam. They captured northeastern India for 7 years. 1819, they came. The Burmese kingdom, they spread their tentacles to northeast India. They defeated the king of Assam. They defeated the king of Manipur. But with the help of British, the king of Manipur and Assamese kingdom, the British primarily, they drove away the Burmese from the northeastern India.
Okay. So basically the British are to be credited to having included the Northeast to where it is today.
I won't say to be credited. As I said, the idea of Indian civilization had always existed. That is number one in the northeastern India. But yes, to bring it to administrative control of either Kolkata or Delhi was made by East India Company first in 1826. When I say, as I said, I am distinguished. One is the administrative control, other is, but the administrative control of Delhi or Bengal was never there till 1826.
So General Saab, post that we have this, almost 200 years now, 1826 and 200 years almost
Yes.
since the, so we are reaching a landmark kind of, wherein the administratively, yes, they are part of India, and 1975 onwards, even Sikkim is now definitely a part. Now we're going to be reaching 200 years in the next 4 years. So, but over the last 75 years, what went missing? I mean, what was the reason why it stayed where it was from 1826 to 1947, and then from 1947 till 2015, 14, this has stayed where it is almost, or if not, it has gone to from bad to worse. Had gone from bad to worse terribly, wherein well, I am not an expert on that also, but things were bad for 70 years. Why were they so bad even after independence for 70 years, when Northeast was integrally a part of India, including Sikkim from 75? Why was it so?
Amit, I must compliment you for this question. Excellent question. Well done. I will divide my answer into two parts. One is from 1826 till 1947 and thereafter. first between 1826 and 1947, the only thing the British did was, their only interest was the resources of the northeastern region, including oil and tea. Oil and tea industry, and also the timber. So the entire British interest in northeastern India was primarily for their commercial interest. So from 1826 till 1947, they were busy in commercial exploitation of the northeastern India and not so much on development as such. That is, to put it very, very short. And also they found that 60%, the only religion that existed was Hinduism in the Brahmaputra Valley and in Manipur Valley, and some Islam in Brahmaputra Valley and the Surma Valley. So they found that interest in this, how to proselytize, how to convert this 60 to 70% population into Christianity. That was their priority. Now, 1947 onwards. So if that was the priority prior to 1947, at the time of independence, the understanding of the Indian administration, government of India administration of the various, parts of northeastern India was lacking. Thereafter, the history of 1962 war, 1972-71 war.
Were these British having a different outlook in that case towards Northeast compared to rest of India, including the Bengal province? Because Christianity conversion, why only Northeast? They any which ways were from the Mongoloid community, which already had adopted Buddhism by large as their, kind of religion when they had come over.
In the northeastern region, Buddhism was negligible, except for part of, Tawang, except for some parts of Arunachal, present-day Arunachal, Tawang, particularly the Monpas. All other people, the maximum population of Brahmaputra Valley, the Ahoms, the Assamese, and the Meiteis, there is the Manipuris, they were already Vaishnavites in 16th century or 17th century. By that time, they were Vaishnavites. So, rest of the population, close to about 40 to 50% of the population of northeastern India, about 40%, didn't have religion. They were animists. They didn't have Buddhism as their religion, except for, as I said, Monpas of Tawang. So therefore, this was one of their objectives besides the commercial interests. That was the only interest in northeastern India. I am now talking about 1947, pre-1947. After 1947, the partition got the entire northeastern region into the communication-wise. Bengal had gone to Pakistan. East Bengal had gone to Pakistan. So, economically, northeastern India became very, very, cut off from the entire economic activity of the country. So this, even after partition also, the governance issues, the development issues, the connectivity issues, all these remain a pipe dream for the northeastern people. So much so, 1962 war, which was when the Chinese attacked, thereafter, in fact, the entire northeastern region became some kind of was seen from a prism of, security prism. Therefore, the developments didn't take place. In fact, people went to the extent of saying that if we develop northeastern region, the Chinese may come anytime. So the developmental lag was tremendous, even after 1947. Developmental, then psychological isolation, so much so even Nehru in 1962 war, in fact, he had said, "My heart goes out to the people of Assam," thereby meaning that, like it was like a farewell to Assam during 1962 war. So there are many multiple economic, multiple political, multiple psychological issues that have made the region or northeastern part of the country, to feel isolated in the past, not any longer, as I said, in the past. Yeah.
But post 62 and then post 71, what changes were made to ensure that there
So,
is kind of a, they are alienated not any further than what they were, or what was
yeah.
done to bring them into
When the
mind?
yeah, okay. When the nation building exercise was in full swing after the independence, we had the Naga insurgency as early as 1946 onwards. In fact, the first accord was signed between India government and the Nagas and only in 1946. Yeah, I think it was 1947. So we had the Naga insurgency, we had Manipur insurgency starting in 1960s, we had the Mizo insurgency in 1960s, we had Tripura insurgency in 1980s, Assam in 1980s. So you see that for 40 years after independence, the entire region was engulfed in insurgency situation right from 1947 onwards. Therefore, there the developmental activities could
Then
not
the
take place.
British were again the point to be taken here that the British were better administrators.
I won't say they were better administrators. I won't say they were better. There were multiple fighting or resistance against British also, right from 1980, 1826 onwards. In fact, the kingdoms of Manipur fought the British in 1891. The Indian freedom struggle from 1826 onwards till 1947, northeastern part of the country is full of resistance against the British. I can count number of resistance and number of battles that took place between the British and northeastern kingdoms and the principalities also.
Okay, that means that they also wanted freedom from the British.
Obviously, the northeastern part of the northeastern, even the tribals, those unorganized resistance, then the kingdoms, they have been fighting against the British for hundreds of years after 1826. I can list out.
What was the reason for their fighting against the British? Because was it just independence from exploitation of the resources, or was it the
One,
other? Because they didn't have the nationalist backdrop. They didn't have the nationalist backdrop that the Bengalis exhibit as their USP across the world over centuries. So didn't they have that as the philosophy behind this kind of agitations against the British?
see, I won't say that all this resistance against the British were well organized or as part of the Indian freedom movement as such, but yes, it would have definitely affected. But it was isolated movements against the British policies, against the British taxation system, against the British policy of expansionism.
Probably that is the
The
reason why we don't hear about many names, or probably I don't know any name that comes
yeah,
to mind.
yeah,
Probably
many that
Gopinath Bordoloi is one name I think of. Not many names are there from the Northeast wherein the nationalism or the freedom movement or the freedom fighter kind of personalities we can remember from the Northeast or over the 120 years of the freedom movement since the British took over.
I think there are many freedom fighters whose name need to be in the Indian history. In fact, a few days back, I have written an article on the same subject that you are talking about. In fact, very recently, Mount Harriet in Andaman Nicobar was named as Mount Manipur by Home Minister of India, because the king of Manipur, after the defeat by the Britishers, was imprisoned in that jail, Maharaja Kula Chandra Singh. So there are
But that
many,
was not
but
from a nationalist perspective. That was not from a
yeah,
nationalist perspective.
so
It was from a regional perspective.
whether you call it nationalist or, but the fighting was in the regional perspective.
Okay, and then this insurgency and terrorism has been going on since 47 till probably the 80s and 90s. And then,
And
yeah, please carry on, sir. After that?
yeah, thereafter, as I said in my beginning, in the opening remarks, there have been 16 or 17 accords all over Northeast India, due to which the Mizoram Accord in 1986 largely have brought peace in Mizoram. In Tripura, 1988, Tripura Accord has also brought out a kind of peace in Tripura today. 1988, again in 1993. Meghalaya, more or less, it is peaceful area. Then Assam Accord, 1975, 76, 1986, I think, Assam Accord. And Bodo Accord of 2003, then, and as late as 2020, have also brought some kind of a relative peace in Assam. However, the Naga insurgent NSCN-IM, that talk which is going on since 1997, for over 20 many years now, 26 years or something, is still continuing. That is in that context that I am also involved indirectly in some way. And in Manipur, there has been some groups have gone into suspension of operations, but not as an accord now in active. In fact, many of them are supporting the Myanmar military even today in Myanmar. So therefore,
are these insurgents or are these terrorists?
See, Ahmed, it's very difficult to know. When you say, I would say that if you have some popular support, then you call it insurgency.
Julio Ribeiro,
Terrorism
Julio Ribeiro, he's a 94-year-old former DGP of Punjab and Rajasthan and Gujarat, former CGP of Mumbai. He was on your show because this is because of people like you that we are doing this over the last 15 months. General VK, you, Brigadier Apte, General K Rao, General Counsel Vimalya Singh, Admiral Robin Dhawan. I need to name them. Anyways, Julio Ribeiro told me just a few days before his 93rd birthday that the difference between insurgency and terrorism is, making people sing to your tunes. Insurgency is singing the tune of the people. And terrorism is basically, something which is called peace by control. And insurgency is about reaching a solution which is actually in the interest of the real needs of the people of the soil. And henceforth, there is a distinct demarcation between insurgents and terrorists. Terrorists are somebody with whom we are more inclined to, because they are more powerful, they have the arms and ammunitions. That is what basically a new movie called Anek has also shown, recently released last week or so. It's a movie made on this subject, which talks about the Indian government or the center supporting the, kind of alleged terrorist group, which is more powerful, which has got huge money, resources, and it is trying to have a peace accord with that group so that through elections, their government can be set up in collaboration with the center Whereas the insurgents who are cropping up in tits and bits in the same place or region, who support the people's voice and who represent the people's voice, but are relatively less, resourceful, uh, they are being left out of this negotiation process because they cannot have negotiations with both the interests. So now that is peace accord, and where and insurgents in that movie are shown as some people who are basically representing peace. So how do you think the process has to go forward? Talks with people like the terrorists, people who have the power, or the real voice of the people? Because the voice of the people is something which was not heard for so many years. And now the center Indian government, which is so powerful, should listen to the voice of the people and reach a peace accord with somebody who is representing the voice of the people, and not who has made people accept his voice as the leader of that region as a terrorist.
I totally agree with you. I agree with, I have not said anything differently from what Mr. Rivero said. And I agree with you that people's voice must be heard. But the problem comes when the terrorism, or by use of terror tactics, when you force the opinion of large number of people due to fear, psychosis, or due to fear of the gun, that is something that is to be avoided. And it has to be the people's voice. But what happens is, in real terms, what is people's voice? You heard a few days back, Mr. Jamir, who was the governor of Maharashtra, governor of Orissa, who was a CM of Nagaland, who was the first political secretary to Jawaharlal Nehru, he said, NSC and IM, that is the terrorist group who are in negotiating with Indian government, he said they don't represent the people. We represent. That's what he said a few days back. Similarly, NSC and IM, they are having a big meeting today in a place called Hebron in Nagaland. They are saying that people like Jamir do not represent the voice. We represent the voice of the people because we have struggled for last 75 years. So
What is the solution? Referendum?
So the solution to my mind is that when you say most of the people who are not anti-India, or who are ready to be accommodated within the Constitution of India, their voice must be taken as relevant.
What if both are agreeing to India's constitution and flag?
I see, if you are coming down to specific,
but they in that case, NSCIN over so many years has an influence over the people out of fear psychosis, if I may assume so, knowing nothing about NSCIN's history. Then in that case, even the elections, how fair could the elections be? Ultimately, the people who are under the influence of that one particular group, who supposedly are representing by force or by terror or by years of suppression, oppression, arms, ammunitions, that again could be the outcome of the elections. And finally, we reach nowhere. We reach the situation of control, which is handed over. Basically, somebody who's blackmailed you, is arm twisted you, and taken over the control of the state unofficially or officially.
I agree with you. I agree with you. In many cases, that happens even today.
So will that be in national interest?
No, that is definitely not in national interest.
Then,
so the only way forward.
What is the way forward, sir?
The only way forward is that maximum, as I said, maximum number of groups, maximum number of people to be taken on board, particularly those who are willing to be within the Constitution of India. Otherwise, how can Government of India talk, outside the government, Constitution of India? Government of India will be ready to start talking, but when the accord comes, I don't think anyone will go out of the constitution against the basic framework of constitution.
So
So
somebody who is
I would,
controlling the state today, tomorrow through elections and by agreeing upon the constitution and knowing that he will at least, it is just like, the Mughal emperor handing over the baton of one of his kingdoms to one of the stronger, rulers after defeating him. It is something
no,
like that.
no, that is why you'll find that the talks which are going on, ongoing talks, are largely between Delhi and the groups directly. In fact, the government of local governments here in Northeast India, they are one of the stakeholders, not the only stakeholder. Are you getting the point? They are one of the stakeholders, but the major decision maker even today is Delhi, for the same reason that you are talking.
Could probably, affiliation with the, with the party in power be one solution for the strongest group? Because they will then, in that case, have to represent the ideology of the party in power, the policies of the party in power. In this case, it's the BJP. And suppose Mr. X, who represents the NSCIN, the most powerful group, and assuming terrorism or insurgency, whatever he represents, he fights the elections on the ticket of the BJP. Would that be a solution?
Something like that was done in Mizoram. It was largely successful. But in the case of Nagaland and Manipur, because of the diversity of the ethnic groups, because of the diversity of the interest groups, I have a feeling that that may not be the only solution. Yes, that would be one of the solutions. As to
yeah,
that,
especially because Manipur is a Vaishnav state. Vaishnav is
yeah,
Hindutva, and BJP, the current ruling dispensation, represents Hindutva.
yeah. So therefore, what I am saying is, as part of a larger kind of a arrangement where we have many factors to be taken into account, what you are suggesting could be one of the methods amongst others, other methods to actually attempt.
Now,
But finally, can I say just one, as a closing remark, can I say something?
yeah, that's what I was coming to say.
I would say that the issues can be addressed only by the following. A, good governance. Number one. Number two, eradication of corruption. I mean, anyway, I sum it up by saying that good governance, all the illegal activities that is going on here, must be moved, is the political will to actually act in the interest of overall interests of India as a nation first. For long, we have been encouraging, diverse, tendencies for, breaking up into various identities, and all because of, political reasons. So for 4 reasons, I have given 4 things. Governance, number one, removal of corruption and all these anti-national activities. Third, political will. And the fourth is that finally it has to have the political will of Delhi and the local governments.
Article 371.
When I say political,
Article 371.
Article 371 was incorporated in the Constitution, Northeastern region. So I don't see anything wrong in that. However, we must review all the special laws for any part of the country in keeping with times.
Is AFSPA still there in Northeast?
Yes, AFSPA is very much there in many parts of Northeast, particularly Nagaland and Manipur. It is only in some parts that have been removed very recently.
Could president's rule be one option?
I really don't think so, because that will be against the grain of democracy. And but yes, if the situation so demands, only then as a last resort to improve the governance, I would say that yes, but not as a routine matter.
No, that's what I was also hinting at. Periodically, to ensure that these four pillars of democracy, which you pointed out, in this case, could be, rooted, well in this region, so that the next steps of real democracy or the democratic process could start. I think president's rule could be periodically very of the options for the next few years, 2-3 years, so that economic stability, ultimately economics is what drives everything.
Yeah.
Economics is what drives everything. You have food, you have money, you have opportunities to run, you have opportunities to be employed, you have opportunities to fly, you have opportunities to get connected to the entire country, the entire world, which is already there. You have opportunities to interact with the mainstream. Then automatically you start getting confidence. And once you have the confidence, then the process of elections, peace accord. And why do we need the peace accord? Who are you? Who are you sitting there? You're part of the country. There will be an election. Let things get stabilized. Let there be elections. Whoever wins becomes the chief minister and becomes a part of the federal structure. This peace accord is another, I would say, another role. I mean, according to me, it's the most, non-peaceful thing that can happen, I feel. Thank you, sir. It was wonderful to talk to you. And, we'll have another round of show with you and some stakeholders, including the former CM of Manipur, in this week itself. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you.